In today's video, I'll be going over some of the tips, tricks and things you might have forgotten or missed in Deadzone. As Halo Flashpoint is kicking off big time, starting in November of last year and getting huge this year, I thought I'd go over things that would possibly apply to Halo but would more apply to the game that birthed it, to want of a better term, because as most people know and some people might not, Halo Flashpoint, the rules set anyway, came from Deadzone, a game that's been going since 2011, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. But that we're not going to go into in-depth detail of what Deadzone is or what you could do. I'm going to go into things for the Deadzone players, for what maybe you might want to have thought about a little bit more, shall we say. So, like the others I've done for the other games, I've got a list of a few. I'm sure there's some I've forgotten or some I've not really thought about. Well, put in the comments below of ones that you've got that you think people might not think about or like that. So, first one is fluffy lists can win games. Now, this might be obvious, but Deadzone is a game is one where majority of the factions have got at least two themes going on. For example, the Enforcers, you could do it just Pathfinders if you wanted, so no armour, slightly weak firepower capabilities, but good manoeuvrability and cheap. You could do it all Peacekeepers, so not many models and expensive, but high armour, not being able to be pinned, not being able to be moved about by grenades and the like. So there's that there. Another example, Forge Fathers. Forge Fathers, you could have just Brockers if you wanted. So a lot of hammers, a lot of good close combat, no armour, but fairly cheap and a bit short range. You could go just Artificers if you wanted. So again, short range, but fairly decent close combat, good, fairly not bad all-rounders, but not really good at anything per se. The only faction you can't really do this for is the Nameless. Reason being is that they're not really a theme as such. In fact, they're all sort of like a theme onto their own, really. But I took, just for an example, I took Forge Guard at this tournament a couple of years ago, and I didn't do that badly actually. I came third, which I didn't win, granted, but coming third means I was obviously doing something right. That was just using really elite units as troops and a few specialists, and that was pretty much it, and it worked. It's not going to work for everyone, and possibly for tournaments it's not going to get everything you want to do, but you know, as most factions can do it, and unlike other games, it's not really a bad idea to take whatever you want. This next one is more for new players, although it could actually still apply to older players, but I think it is more for newer players. Grenades / explosive weapons are good for moving models off objectives. Now, this should be fairly obvious, because in Deadzone, when a model is hit with a grenade or explosive weapon, they are scattered off the cube they are on. Now, explosive weapons, you need a line of sight to the cube that you're firing at. You don't need line of sight to the model, just the cube. Grenade weapons, however, where it says frag or grenade and like, you don't need line of sight, but you do need 2 successes. So that's kind of the difference. Well, another difference is most weapons that are grenade weapons are either grenade weapons, well, grenades, and are either 3 squares range or indirect, such as grenade launchers, and are like 4 or 5 squares range. So you can't move and shoot with them, but you can shoot without line of sight, sort of thing. Or in other cases, they could be like mortar weapons, which you can fire all over the map. They are really fun and really annoying. Chances are the grenade weapon, unless the survive value of the things you want to get off the square got low survive, chances are they won't die, but they will be moved off where the objective is, so they won't score points. Yes, they could get back up and move on there, but chances are you'll have something near to maybe finish the job off. And because they have to get up as their first short action, they are more limited as to what their responses are going to be. Do they get up and shoot you back, or do they get up and move back on that objective to be able to at least try and take it? Next one, and I don't think many people think of this one, but I think it's always in the back of people's minds, I think. There's always a chance, no matter how small, for any model to change the outcome of a game. And I think this is very true. The biggest example I can think of, and this happened in 2nd edition, although it could happen in 3rd, depending on how the terrain is. I had a Bombot, because I was playing Forge Fathers, and my opponent was GCPS, and they had a Strider. Now, this was in close combat, and the Bombot couldn't do anything apart from survive, but I thought, tie up the Strider. My opponent, thinking I was being daft, obliged on trying to kill the Bombot in close combat. However, the Bombot lasted 3 turns, and on the turn it did die, the 3rd turn, it took a wound off the Strider when it exploded. Now, you might be thinking, why don't you just make it explode? I didn't really understand, well, I don't really understand that you could, and I don't think at the time in 2nd edition you could actually just make it explode. I'd have to check, but I don't think you could just make it explode unless it was a short action of yours. I think that's the case. Another example, which a lot of people I know have had, is zombies. Now, zombies' surviving capabilities is not great. In fact, they've only got 1 wound and their survive is 6. However, some people have used the term super zom for the fact that beyond all reasonable reasonability, a zombie has survived being shot, and sometimes has gone on to take objectives and killed enemies and the like. I mean, zombies in close combat, I mean, they're not the best by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not the worst either. And another example off the top of my head is some GCPS troopers just taking objectives because my Forge Guard were not quick enough and didn't have the range. Now, my Forge Guard couldn't really get to them in time, and there were too many GCPS troopers. But I took a few out, but not enough, unfortunately, and they took the objective. But there's the thing, even the most weakest, most pitiful thing could potentially change the game. And yeah, they might just have a rifle and shoot on 6s, but it's always worth a chance. This next one, I do believe, is a more recent one, or it might be one I've always missed, which is a fault of mine, if nothing else, is walls can pin. Now, you might think this is weird, but if you've played Halo Flashpoint, this will become clear. In fact, more clear. If you get knocked back into a wall, say if someone shoots at you, go directly back into a wall, or if in close combat the attacker shoves you into a wall because they decide, you take damage from the wall. So the wall rolls 3 dice and you roll, you survive, and if the wall gets more successes than you, then you're pinned. This can be really deadly in Deadzone, more so than firefight, where you've only got 4 models in firefight, but there are a lot of ways of getting around being pinned. I mean, you might not think so, but trust me, there is. Whereas in Deadzone, there's a few, but so many models aren't that good from recovering from being pinned. They might as well just be dead. So, I mean, the only saving grace is you might be kept on an objective, but if you're in close combat, then if you get knocked into a wall, then yeah, you're going to be pinned in close combat for a fair while. Going off of that one, I've not written this down, but I have realised, if you get knocked into a wall and are pinned in close combat, when you get up, which you have to, your opponent, you just get to survive and your opponent gets to hit you. If you get up from being pinned, all you do is get to survive when you're in close combat. So it could be a ongoing case of being thwacked against a wall, being picked up like a ragdoll, thwacked again against the wall, get back up, thwack against the wall, so on and so forth. Put in the comments below if you've had a zombie survive from this. Next one I've got is flamers / it burns weapons. Usually don't kill, but will set things on fire. Now, this bit is fairly obvious. It burns weapons, set things on fire. Well done, Sherlock Holmes. However, that's not the point. The point is that it burns effects can a lot of the times be more successful than the actual attack. Most flamers have a range of 2, so not that far a range, and don't usually have AP on them. Some do, like the magma rifle, or some have a bit more range, such as the Hellfather's Xerxes cannons, which has a range of, I believe, 4 or 5. I'll have to check, but it's pretty goddamn good range for a flamer weapon. But like walls, the fire rolls its attack and the model on fire rolls its survive. If the fire gets more successes, then the model on fire takes damage. If it would, I mean, if it's got any armour and whatnot, then it won't take damage. And it counts as being activated. Now that's the biggest bit. It counts as being activated. So that model you wanted to activate to maybe get on an objective or kill that really frustrating enemy, yeah, you've missed a turn of doing nothing. Now, saying that though, if you've got a really good survive value, it's not going to be that much of an issue. But even if you have, it only takes 1 success over the surviving model to do the effect, and then it might be too late to recover. Another one, and this is more to do with the recent big update that Deadzone and Firefight have, but this is Deadzone video, is that engineers can heal with a special action, heal vehicles and constructs, and can also put fires out of vehicles and constructs, which is very good and makes engineers a lot more viable. Engineers before were just for certain object scenarios, and I think for traps as well, but now they can do that. They make them a lot more powerful, and you don't have to be in the same square of the thing to heal them, because a lot of the vehicles are either size 3 or 4, and trying to heal, say, a Strider with an engineer ain't possible. So having this new thing brought in really makes a difference. Next one is that sniper rifles still can move and shoot. Now, this might be a bit odd for some people. Surely using a sniper rifle is a long action. Using the sniper scope effect is long action. However, you can still move and shoot with a weapon with sniper scope. You just don't get the effects of sniper scope. And this can be really helpful. Say you've got a sniper that's near an objective. You might want to move them onto that objective, and then maybe they want to shoot an enemy, and the case can still do so as a short action. So why not? It just means you're there to get victory points for that turn, and potentially cause some damage on an enemy, and potential setup for next turn. Next one, and this only applies to certain armies. The biggest ones are the Vermin and the Nameless, although special consideration for the Night Stalkers, the Marauders and the Council of Seven Special Strike Force. Models that give out prey markers should be #1 target. Now, in case you don't know, prey markers give friendly models +1 dice in close combat. You do need to hit, but you don't need to do damage, potentially. So, how it works is that, say a Vermin, I can't remember what it is, there's, I can't remember what the weapon is, but it's a Vermin weapon. Say the Vermin with the gun shoots a Enforcer, and hits the Enforcer. The Enforcer survives the attack, doesn't take any damage or whatnot, too much armor and so on. They've still got the prey marker. The prey marker can't be removed and is there for the entire game until the Enforcer is dead. So any friendly Vermin model attacking that Enforcer in close combat will get +1 dice. Now, you already get +1 dice for charging in, so that's essentially +2. Now, say if you've got a Terror or a Nightmare or a Overcharger, they're bigger than an Enforcer, that's another dice. Or say it's a Broodguard, that's now size 2. That's also got Smashing on its weapon. That's an extra 1 on top of that, so it can easily escalate, and prey weapons can make AP on weapons not really that much of a problem. Even the basic trooper, I have had it a few times where a basic trooper has gone up against a Hammerfist drop troop, and that basic trooper, because of that extra dice, it's helped so much. So yeah, any weapons that give out prey should be public enemy #1 in your games, because they are so dangerous. In the Marauders, there's only really one, and that's the Goblin weapon team with the heavy Hue Beamer, I think it's called. That gives out prey markers, but because it's heavy weapon, you can't move and shoot with it unless you use a command dash to do so. It's also a bike, so you can't go up levels unless there's a ramp. So a lot of the times I don't think you're going to see that all that much. The one for the Night Stalkers is, I believe, a splat for one of the leader options. I believe it's the Shade. Don't quote me on that, but I believe it is. So that's only if you take that leader and if you get a splat on the command dice result. So it's more possible with the Night Stalkers, but if you're not going to take the Shade that often, then it's not really much of an issue. With the Hand of the Seven Special Strike team, there's about 3 models in that give out prey markers, and one of the special things that you can give them at the start of the game is that prey markers don't work in close combat, but instead work on shooting. So all shooting against the targets get +1 dice, and if you're shooting a sniper rifle, then it's an extra +2, so it's +3. I still think they're really powerful, but in the last tournament I used them on, I didn't do the worst, but Jesus, I did not do good. The next one is one that is, I'd say, pretty obvious, but I'll just go through it anyway because I think some people might not know or might not consider it. Being suppressed limits a model's options, and it really does. It's a short action to get up, and you have to do so as that model's first action for its activation. So, like I said earlier, does it go for the objective? Does it shoot an enemy? Does it just run off and try to hide and survive more? You've still got options, but you've only got one instead of two. So, what do you do? Sort of leading on from that, if you are shooting into close combat and you've got a friendly model in there that... Leading on from that, if you're shooting into close combat with a suppression weapon and you've got a friendly model in there that's got solid, it's not going to be an issue because solid means they ain't going to be suppressed. The main ones that spring to mind for this is the enforcers with their peacekeepers. So if you're firing a burst laser into close combat and there's a peacekeeper in there, it's more going to be a benefit to you. Yes, you're using less dice, but target's still going to be suppressed. And the other one that springs to mind is the Forge Fathers with their Forge Guard. So if you're firing a autocannon into there, and there's a Forge Guard in close combat, not going to be a problem. Also, I do believe it works on Hammerfist drop troops, so they ain't going to get pinned. Yes, another one is the Marauders with their Ripper suits. They are also solid, so pinning does not affect them as well. So it's a little bit. It's actually a good better thing for Ripper suits because if the target gets pinned and it's a Rainmaker Ripper suit, then they can move out of close combat to be able to shoot. And oh look, there's a target just pinned there. Get the minigun out. Boom! I know that's not the noise of miniguns, don't start. Next one I've got is tough will not always save you. Now, next one I've got is tough will not always save you. Now, tough is an extremely useful ability. It means you ignore one successful hit against you. So, say your opponent's got 3 hits on you, successful hits, and you've got 1 successful survive. That means 2 successful hits go through. You've got 1 point of armour. Fine. 1 hit is remaining, so you take 1 damage. Unless you've got tough, so no damage go through. Now, there are certain effects, such as augmented, because you need to take a survive roll and get 2 successes if you choose to use augment, and tough and armour does not help on that. But by and large, tough does help with everything. If your opponent, however, has got more successes on his hits than you have on your survives, tough's only going to go so far. And yes, you could think, my model's really tough and his survive's not bad. I can just go out there, hold that objective, and it's not going to matter. The last one I've got is that bikes can be pinned. So a lot of people might know this, but I think it's one people overlook, that just because it's a bike, yeah, acts like a vehicle, so it can't be moved around, right? Yeah, but it still can be pinned, and overall it can't go up ramps, it can't go up levels unless there's a ramp there. And really, bikes are fast, extremely fast, and they're good for out-manoeuvring enemies and getting in position for objectives. And they can be fairly decent for shooting capabilities, I've found. However, like I've just said, they can be pinned, and I think it's something that people either don't realise, don't know, or just forget about. But there are a lot of bike type models out there, such as the monocycle for the various human factions and the Rebs, and the Blade now actually. The Marauder Goblin Weapon Team is a bike. The Forge Father Valkyrie, obviously, is a bike. And the jet bike for the Enforcers is a bike. The Mazda jet hover bike is a bike. So there's plenty of them out there. It's just a case of that burst laser up there. It might not hurt you, but it will still mean you're being pinned. So that is my little video. Put in the comments below if I've missed some. I'm sure I have. With the big update, I'm sure there's a fair few I have missed. So, thank you for watching, and I hope to get more videos up a lot sooner. Anyway, goodbye for now.